Hi. So, one of the things that I love about being a school leader is the authentic relationships that you build with your scholars. And as I was getting ready to come over here, I have a scholar at one of my schools named Jakaya, who has been with me since 3rd grade, is now in 8th grade. And Jakaya struggles. And part of her struggle, I am her calm down space. And Jakaya, she reminds me of me because she's got a real big bark and she's real tough and she's got a lot of attitude and she does all that. But inside, she's really soft and she's really, really smart. And if I'm not there when Jakaya needs me, I get a text, I get a call or something. Where were you? What's going on? What's happening? And because I knew I was going to be in Boise, Idaho, I needed to make sure Jakaya knew I was not going to be at school for the next 3 days, or at least at her school. And so I said, so Jakaya, I'm not going to be here. And she said, well, where are you going? I said, I'm going to a conference and I'm going to speak. She said, well, where's the conference? I said, Boise, Idaho. She said, where's Boise, Idaho? I said, well, let's look it up. Go ahead and look. And so she looked up Boise and she saw where it is. And she said, oh, it's a lot of white people there. What you gonna say? Why they ask you to come? And she literally said it just like that. And after I was offended, I said, I actually don't know why they asked me to come. And I actually don't know what I'm going to say. But what I am going to do is speak my truth, share a little bit about who I am and why I do this work, and hope it leaves you inspired, and come back and tell Jakaya that, yes, there are a lot of white people in Boise, Idaho. So I am Shantelle Wright. I am the founder and CEO of Achievement Prep in Washington, D.C. And I am a lawyer who operates charter schools in Washington, D.C. Because I am the daughter of Sarah, I needed to make sure you knew that I was a lawyer. So I also told my mom that I was coming to Boise, Idaho to speak and share. And my mother is 70. We are having a huge birthday party for her on Saturday. And I said, well, Mom, I'm not going to be able to come in earlier during the week because I got to go to Boise to speak. You got to go where? I said, I got to go to Boise. Boise? I said, yes. I said, I'm going to go and speak. And she said, oh, well, that'll be good. And she said, well, what are you going to say? I said, well, I don't know what I'm going to say. And she said, well, the first thing you need to do, because there's a lot of white people in Idaho, is let them know that you are a lawyer. So, on behalf of my mother, please know I am a lawyer. So I can let her know that I told you that and she will be proud. So what we're going to do, we're just going to talk. Many of you have seen this slide, picture, illustration before. And I don't want to talk about jabs at the illustrator, who they are, why they did it, and what it meant. But I think when we first saw it, for a lot of educators, it kind of got us excited because it started to show what we were trying to do in the space, which is, people come different, and in education, we go through all of these things, right? We're still trying to figure it out. We're still talking about education. We're still discussing what the issues are. And I actually don't like that. I actually like being with Jakaya and doing the work and changing lives because I'm a product of education and I know the power. And because my life changed, my mother lives a very different life, and my 2 boys live a very different life. But you get this picture and you say, okay, equality shows people, their barriers, they're not being treated the same. Equal doesn't work for everyone. And then we got the next picture that said equity, said, yes, this is what it is. You give each person what it is that they need in order to succeed. And then there were some of us, and we celebrated as educators and said, yes, here's a depiction of the work and what it is that we are doing. But then some of us saw this picture and were still equally offended because they're just looking over a fence. So there's still a barrier there that is keeping them from the game. So then the next illustration that came was this one, right? And it was like, yes, the barrier is gone, liberation. We're free. We've got this thing. There are no more barriers, and we felt good about that. And we felt like if we remove the barriers in education, we are giving children choice, we're giving them access, we're changing the world. And what I want to challenge us to do is not celebrate removing barriers, because if we don't actually get the children that I serve into the game so that they can inform the game, they can play the game, and quite frankly, they can disrupt the game, we may as well go back to this. And even before this, right? And so right now, there's real talk in education. Right now, there's the DEI phase, right? So 10, 15 years ago, it was backwards planning. Everybody was talking about that. And then 5 years after that, it was data-driven instruction. And right now, we talk a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think what I want to talk about is the myth that we feel when we remove a barrier, or we think we remove a barrier, but we don't actually prepare those that we're trying to help to truly compete. We don't prepare them to actually play the game. When I was in 1985, I was 12. I know I look good, right? I am 46 years old. I was 12. And I was part of what they called an urban-suburban program. I grew up with my mother, Sarah, single mother, very, very impoverished means. She has 12 brothers and sisters. There's 13 of them. I am the only child of my mother, and we didn't have much at all, and it was really, really tough. But for my mother, she was like, education is the thing. That is the thing that is going to change your life. You're going to live a very different life because of education. So I was part of a program that they called the Urban Suburban Program, where they take inner city children and they bus us out to the suburbs to create diversity. God forbid you just be diverse, right? So we went there to create that diversity. And I had a similar person in my life that I am to Jakaya. Her name was Patrice. She was a white Italian. I guess you're still white if you're Italian. I don't know. She was an Italian woman who was really, really good to me. And I had a lot of attitude in school. I had a lot of issues. I had a lot of behavior ways that it showed up, but I was super smart. So they didn't really know what to do with me, right? So I talked all this mess. I was disrespectful, or what they thought was disrespectful in my tone, but I was also kind of brilliant at the same time. So it was like, what do we do? And Patrice was one of those people in my life that said, you got a lot to say, little girl. You got a lot to say. You need to use it to change the world. You need to use it for good. So she kept a really high bar for me. But back to 85, I was in this urban-suburban program, took this long bus ride. I'm coming home, and I'm walking down the street, and I lived in the hood, and I see people all in front of this stuff, and I'm like, oh, wow, what's going on? Because in the hood, if something's going on, what's going on? I want part of it. And when I got to it, it was actually everything that my mother and I owned. On the streets, people were picking through it and figuring out what they wanted and what they taken, because we had just got evicted from our home. I didn't know, obviously, that we were being evicted. I didn't know that that was my stuff on the side of the street. And then I'm not telling you that to feel bad for me, because it's been a long time since I was that poor, thank God. But I don't really remember what happened and where we went and all of that. But I remember the next day, part of my check-in to get started for my day was with Patrice. And what Patrice would make sure I did my homework. I was ready for the day. I got my attitude together. I did all of that. And when I walked in, I had not done my homework. And Patrice said, well, why didn't you do your homework? I said, well, there was a lot going on last night. She said, well, what happened? And I told her. And she said, oh, are you okay? I said, I'm good. And she said, do you need anything? I said, no. And then she said, but you didn't do your homework. And I said, I know. I just told you, And she said, but that's not your responsibility. What was your responsibility was your homework. Stuff is going to happen in your life, and you're not going to be able to control it. What you can control is what you're responsible for, and you were responsible for your homework. And some of us sitting here right now might say, oh my God, that's not trauma-informed instruction, right? That's not social-emotional learning and needs. How dare you say this to this child who just experienced this trauma? It was the best thing she could have done to me, because life will happen. It will happen. And for the children that I serve, it happens every single day. My schools are located in Southeast DC. 99% of my staff 99% of my scholars are African American. I don't know what the other 1% is, quite honestly, because they all look black to me. And they're poor, and they come from rough homes, and they come from all of that, but they're brilliant. And what they need is not to stand on the sideline watching the game. That does not help them. That is not equity, and it sure isn't liberation. What's liberation is them being able to play the game and being ready for whatever comes their way. Like this little boy in this picture had no idea what was happening, what was gonna go with that ball, but he was ready, right? And he knew it was coming for him. That is liberation. That is true equity. That's what we do. That's why I do this work. And while for many of you, what Patrice said to me may have seemed hard, Patrice expected something of me. And that expectation is what put me here today, this poor little black girl in Boise, Idaho, talking to a whole bunch of white people about why I do this work. And so I want to introduce you a little bit to my school. This is Kennedy. What we do at Achievement Prep is make sure that scholars enjoy school. They got to learn. We tell them you are not responsible for what happened on the other side of the threshold, but you are 100% responsible for what happens when you walk into this building. We create authentic relationships between adult and scholar. We make sure that there's safe spaces for them to work through whatever barriers may come their way, but we also prepare them to compete with anyone, anywhere. We create diverse relationships where we help people who don't look like our scholars know and understand who they are, meet them where they are, keep a bar for them, and allow them to ask questions about who are you. So in this picture here, you have Mr. Vail at the science fair with our scholars, talking, knowing, figuring out who they are. Mr. Vail is actually our history teacher. We make sure that our scholars with special needs understand that they have a disability. They do not have a barrier. What they deserve is a way to take that disability and make it work for them and allow them to have success. We teach black boys how to have conversation, to use their words, to disagree, to express themselves, and also make points. We have lots of black men in our building teaching. They aren't just the dean. They aren't just the security guard. They aren't just in the cafeteria. They are teachers, teaching scholars, pushing themselves to be better, because Common Core is no joke. They do that with our scholars every single day. We teach community. We teach our scholars that you take care of each other. You take care of the people next to you. You have a responsibility to your community. We don't ever teach our scholars, oh, get yourself together, leave this community and go somewhere else. No, we say take care of your community. Get yourself together, go somewhere else and get a great education and come back and change your community. We are serious about academics. We teach them the skills that they will need to compete with anyone, anywhere. But we also teach them life skills, because I deal with scholars who simply because of color of their skin and their zip code, if they don't look the right way, if they make the wrong move, you may never know how smart they are. So they have to also have life skills that allow them to navigate. We teach them the love of reading, being and playing with one another. We teach them how to deal with adults and express themselves through text, through words, through writing, through creativity. We believe in our families. At the end of the day, our families bring us their most important person every single day. And they bring us their most important self each and every day. And then we prepare them to graduate and go to great high schools and change the world. Our founding class are now seniors in college. 100% of them are seniors in college. And they're not just in, thank you, community college. 100% of them are in colleges and universities, getting ready to graduate, and 4 of them are coming back to work at Achievement Prep. So I am Shantelle Wright. I am Sarah's daughter. I am a lawyer who is operating charter schools in Washington, D.C. Thank you.